You know that moment when your entire world flips upside down in the span of 3 seconds? When everything you thought you knew about your life, your family, your place in this world just shatters? Yeah, well, buckle up because that's exactly what happened to me at my sister's wedding. And trust me, by the end of this story, you'll understand why I'm still shaking as I tell you this. My name is Veronica, and for 28 years, I've been the family disappointment, the weird one. The black sheep who never quite fit into the perfect suburban Connecticut dream my parents built around my golden child sister, Madison. While she was prom queen, I was in the library. While she was dating the quarterback, I was getting my master's degree in art history. While she was planning her fairy tale wedding to some hotshot lawyer named Marcus, I was just trying to survive another family gathering without completely losing my mind. But here's the thing about being underestimated your whole life. Sometimes, just sometimes, the universe has a way of evening the score in the most spectacular way possible. And boy, did it deliver at Madison's wedding. Let me paint you a picture of my family dynamic, because without context, you won't understand just how absolutely mind-blowing what happened next really was. The Hartwell family of Greenwich, Connecticut. That's us. Dad's a successful investment banker. Mom's a former beauty queen turned socialite. And then there's Madison. Oh, Madison. 5'7", blonde hair that catches sunlight like it's been personally blessed by angels, and a smile that could sell ice to Eskimos. She's everything my parents ever wanted in a daughter. Charming, popular, conventionally beautiful, and most importantly, she never, ever rocks the boat. And then there's me, Veronica. The oops baby who showed up 3 years later with dark hair, green eyes, and apparently a personality that my family finds about as appealing as a root canal. I'm the one who asked too many questions, read too many books, and had the audacity to major in something that wouldn't immediately lead to a 6-figure salary and a husband with a trust fund. Veronica, why can't you be more like your sister? Became the unofficial family motto somewhere around my 15th birthday. Madison got a car for her sweet 16. I got a lecture about being more social. She got into Duke on a partial scholarship for being homecoming queen. I got into Columbia on a full academic scholarship, and somehow that was less impressive because it made me seem too intense. The wedding planning had been going on for 18 months. 18 months. Every family dinner, every phone call, every text message somehow circled back to Madison's big day. The venue, a historic mansion in the Hamptons. The dress, custom Vera Wang, naturally. The guest list, 300 of their closest friends. And the groom, Marcus Wellington III, attorney at law, with a jawline that could cut glass and a family tree that probably had roots in the Mayflower. I'll be honest with you. I was dreading this wedding like most people dread dental surgery. Not because I wasn't happy for Madison, but because I knew exactly what role I'd been cast in. The awkward sister who everyone whispers about behind their champagne flutes. Poor Veronica, still single at 28. Remember when she dated that artist? Thank God that didn't work out. The morning of the wedding, I was getting dressed in my assigned bridesmaid dress, a pale pink monstrosity that made me look like I'd been dipped in cotton candy, when Mom knocked on my door. Veronica, honey, we need to talk. I opened the door to find her standing there in her mother of the bride dress, pearls perfectly in place, wearing that expression that meant I was about to get helpful advice. You know how important today is for Madison? She began, smoothing down my dress like I was still 5 years old. I just want to make sure you blend in. No controversial topics, no intense conversations about art or politics or whatever it is you're passionate about these days. Just smile, be pleasant, and try to be more approachable. Translation: don't be yourself. Be the version of yourself that won't embarrass us in front of 300 people. Got it, Mom. I'll just stand there and look pretty. She missed the sarcasm completely. Exactly. See? You can do this when you try. The ceremony was picture perfect. Madison looked like she'd stepped out of a bridal magazine. Marcus looked like he'd stepped out of a Ralph Lauren ad. And I stood there holding a bouquet of peonies, trying not to roll my eyes at the overly dramatic vows that sounded like they'd been written by a greeting card company. But it was at the reception where everything went sideways. I was sitting at the singles table, because of course there was a singles table, when Madison approached me during the cocktail hour. She'd had just enough champagne to be bold, but not enough to be sloppy. Veronica, she said, sliding into the chair next to me, I need to ask you something. Shoot, are you happy for me? Like really happy? Because sometimes I feel like you think you're better than all of this." She gestured vaguely at the opulent reception, the ice sculptures, the string quartet. I took a deep breath. "Madison, of course I'm happy for you. This is your day, and you deserve to be happy. But what? There's always a but with you, Veronica. You have this way of making everything seem less significant. Like when I told you about Marcus proposing and you said, 'That's nice,' and then immediately started talking about some obscure painting you saw at the Met." I stared at her. "I said congratulations. I asked to see the ring. I agreed to be a bridesmaid despite the fact that you've spent the last year treating me like your personal wedding planner/emotional punching bag. See? There it is. That attitude. That's exactly what I'm talking about." The conversation was interrupted by Marcus appearing at our table with 2 glasses of champagne. He handed one to Madison and smiled at me with the kind of polite warmth reserved for acquaintances you see once a year at Christmas. "Ladies, everything okay over here?" Madison turned to him with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Just having a heart-to-heart with my sister. You know how it is." "Actually," Madison continued, and I could see something shifting in her expression, "I was just telling Veronica how glad I am that she's here today. Even though she's always been different." The word hung in the air like smoke. Different. Not unique. Not special. Different. Like a polite way of saying defective. "Madison," I warned. "No, it's okay," she said, taking a sip of her champagne. "I mean, let's be honest. You've always been the weird one in our family. The one who doesn't quite fit. But that's okay. Every family needs someone who's alternative." I felt my face flush. Around us, other guests were starting to notice the tension. This was happening. At her wedding. In front of everyone. "I think maybe you should slow down on the champagne," I said quietly. "Oh, see? There she goes again, Marcus. Always trying to manage everyone. Always thinking she knows better. You know what she said when I told her I was engaged? She asked if I was sure I wasn't rushing into things. At my own engagement party." Marcus looked uncomfortable, glancing between us. "Maybe we should—" "No, it's fine," Madison interrupted. "Veronica's used to being the outsider. Aren't you, V? You've always been the weird one. And honestly, you always will be. Some things never change." The words hit me like a physical blow. Not because they were particularly creative insults, but because they came from my sister, on her wedding day, in front of her new husband and half the reception. I stood up slowly, my hands shaking slightly. "You know what, Madison? You're absolutely right. I am different, and I'm done apologizing for it." I was about to walk away when something incredible happened. Something that would change everything I thought I knew about my life, my family, and my place in this world. Marcus, who had been standing there looking mortified by his new wife's behavior, suddenly straightened up. His entire demeanor changed. The polite, slightly aloof expression disappeared, replaced by something that looked almost like recognition. He looked directly at me, and in a voice that was suddenly formal, almost reverent, he said, "Ma'am, I believe there's been a misunderstanding." And then, I swear to God, I'm not making this up, Marcus Wellington III, attorney at law, Ivy League graduate and my sister's brand new husband, bowed. Actually bowed. Like I was royalty or something. The entire reception seemed to freeze. Madison's champagne glass stopped halfway to her lips. The string quartet faltered. Even the waiters paused mid-step. "What the hell are you doing?" Madison whispered. But Marcus wasn't looking at her anymore. He was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Respect? Fear? Something else entirely? "Mrs. Hartwell," he said, and his voice was steady, but there was something underneath it that made my skin prickle. "I think we need to have a conversation." And that's when I realized that everything I thought I knew about my life was about to change forever. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The silence stretched on forever. I'm talking about that kind of silence that makes your ears ring, and your heart pounds so loud you're sure everyone can hear it. Marcus was still standing there, looking at me like I'd just materialized out of thin air, while Madison stood frozen with her mouth slightly open, champagne glass trembling in her hand. "Marcus, what the hell is wrong with you?" Madison finally managed to get out, her voice pitched higher than usual. "Why are you bowing to my sister?" But Marcus wasn't answering her. He was still staring at me with this intense expression that was making me incredibly uncomfortable. Around us, the other guests were starting to whisper, and I could feel the weight of 300 pairs of eyes on us. "I think there's been a mistake," I said quietly, trying to defuse whatever weird situation was developing. "I'm just Veronica, Madison's sister, the weird one, remember?" "No mistake," Marcus said, and his voice had this strange quality to it, like he was trying to stay calm but something was threatening to break through. "I should have realized earlier. The eyes, the bone structure, the way you carry yourself, how did I not see it?" "See what?" Madison demanded, stepping closer to her husband. "Marcus, you're scaring me. What are you talking about?" "Your sister," Marcus said slowly, "isn't who you think she is." I felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. "What do you mean?" "Of course I'm who I think I am. I'm Veronica Hartwell, born March 15th, 1996 at Greenwich Hospital. I have my birth certificate, my social security card, Your birth certificate," Marcus interrupted, "is a very good fake." The world tilted. I actually had to grab the back of a chair to keep from falling over. "That's impossible. You're wrong. You have to be wrong." "Marcus, stop this right now," Madison said, her voice getting shrill. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this is our wedding day." "Our wedding day. You can't just—" "I'm not playing a game," Marcus said, and now he was looking at Madison with something that might have been pity. "Madison, your sister is Victoria Sinclair." The name hit me like a physical blow. Victoria Sinclair. I'd heard that name before, but I couldn't place where. It felt familiar in a way that made my stomach clench. "Who the hell is Victoria Sinclair?" Madison asked, but her voice had lost some of its confidence. Marcus ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, messing it up for the first time all day. God, this is complicated. "Madison, your sister is the daughter of Eleanor Sinclair." "Eleanor Sinclair?" I repeated, the name feeling strange on my tongue. "Should I know who that is?" "Eleanor Sinclair," Marcus said carefully, "owns about 40% of the East Coast. Hotels, real estate, shipping companies, tech startups. She's worth approximately $14 billion. The champagne glass slipped from Madison's hand and shattered on the marble floor. "That's impossible. Veronica works at an art gallery. She lives in a studio apartment in Brooklyn. She drives a 15-year-old Honda Civic. Because she doesn't know who she is," Marcus said. "Mrs. Sinclair has been looking for her daughter for 25 years. She was kidnapped when she was 3 years old from their estate in the Hamptons. The kidnappers were never found, but the assumption was that she was killed. I felt like I was going to throw up. This is insane. You're saying my parents kidnapped me? That's impossible. I look like my mom. I have baby pictures. You have your mother's eyes," Marcus said gently. "Eleanor Sinclair's eyes, green, with gold flecks. And those baby pictures? They start when you were around 3 years old, don't they?" I tried to remember my earliest photos. There were plenty of Madison as a baby, but my earliest pictures. He was right. They all seemed to start around the same time, when I was maybe 3 or 4. "This is ridiculous," Madison said, but she sounded less certain now. "Our parents aren't kidnappers. They're not criminals. They're boring suburban Connecticut people who worry about their country club membership and whether the lawn service is doing a good job. Sometimes the most ordinary people are hiding the most extraordinary secrets," Marcus said. "And sometimes those secrets catch up with them." I sank into the chair I'd been gripping. "How do you know all this? How do you know about Eleanor Sinclair? How do you recognize me?" Marcus glanced around the reception, where people were definitely staring now, and whispering behind their hands. "Can we continue this conversation somewhere more private? There's a lot more to explain." "No," Madison said firmly. "We can't continue this conversation anywhere. This is my wedding day. My wedding day. I'm not going to have it ruined by some insane conspiracy theory about my sister being secretly rich." "Madison," I said quietly, "what if it's true? It's not true. It can't be true. Do you understand what this would mean? Do you understand how this would change everything?" And that's when I saw it. The real reason Madison was so upset. It wasn't just about the wedding being disrupted. It was about the fact that if Marcus was right, then everything she'd believed about our family, about her place in it, about being the golden child, was wrong. If I was Victoria Sinclair, daughter of a billionaire, then I wasn't the weird sister who didn't fit in. I was the stolen heiress who'd been hidden away in plain sight. "Marcus," I said slowly, "how do you know Eleanor Sinclair?" "My law firm represents her," he said. "Has for years. I've been working on her case, trying to find her daughter, for the past 3 years. I've seen hundreds of photos of what Victoria might look like as an adult, based on age progression software. I've studied every detail of the case. And you never thought to mention this before today? Madison asked incredulously. I never put it together before today, Marcus said. Veronica Hartwell, the art gallery employee from Brooklyn, and Victoria Sinclair, the missing heiress, seemed like completely different people. But seeing her up close, in profile, when she stood up just now, the resemblance is unmistakable. I touched my face unconsciously. What happens now? If this is true, what happens now? Now, Marcus said. We call Eleanor Sinclair. She's going to want to see you immediately. She's going to want DNA tests, obviously, but I'm already 99% certain. And if the tests prove it, then you're one of the richest women in America, Marcus said simply. And everything changes. I looked around the reception. The perfectly arranged flowers, the ice sculptures, the string quartet still playing softly in the background. All of it suddenly felt surreal, like I was watching it from outside my own body. Madison, I said, I need you to know that I never wanted any of this. I never asked for any of this. But Madison was staring at Marcus with an expression I'd never seen before. You knew, she said quietly. Somewhere in your mind, you knew. That's why you were always so interested in my family stories. That's why you asked so many questions about Veronica. I was curious about your family, Marcus said. I wasn't consciously making a connection. But subconsciously you were, Madison continued. Oh my God, Marcus. You married me to get close to her, didn't you? The accusation hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Marcus's face went white. Madison, that's not... It is, isn't it? She said, and now her voice was deadly calm. You married me because you thought it would somehow help you find Eleanor Sinclair's daughter. And now you have. Madison, please, get away from me, she said quietly. Just get away from me. And then she turned and walked away, leaving Marcus and me standing there in the middle of her wedding reception, surrounded by shattered glass and the ruins of everything we thought we knew about our lives. Is it true? I asked him. Did you marry her because of me? Marcus looked at me for a long moment. I married her because I loved her, he said finally. But I can't say that finding Eleanor Sinclair's daughter wasn't always somewhere in the back of my mind. And I can't say that your family's story didn't intrigue me more than it should have. So you used her. I fell in love with her, he said. But yes, I probably used her too. And now I've destroyed her wedding day, and possibly her life. Welcome to the club, I said bitterly. Apparently, destroying lives is the family business. The rest of the reception was a disaster, and I mean a complete, unmitigated disaster. Madison disappeared into the bridal suite and refused to come out. Marcus spent 20 minutes pacing around the reception hall on his phone, presumably talking to Eleanor Sinclair, or his law firm, or both. The guests were buzzing with speculation, and I could hear snippets of conversation as I walked past. Did you hear what happened? Something about the sister being someone else? I heard she's actually rich. Like really rich. Poor Madison. On her wedding day. Can you imagine? My parents, who had been schmoozing with Madison's new in-laws, finally made their way over to me. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past hour, and Mom was clutching her pearls so tightly I thought she might actually break the strand. Veronica, Dad said quietly, we need to talk. Now. I'd say so, I replied, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. Want to start with explaining why all my baby pictures start when I was 3? Mom made a sound that was somewhere between a gasp and a sob. How could you possibly know about that? So it's true? I felt something cold settle in my stomach. You really did kidnap me? We didn't kidnap you, Dad said quickly, looking around to make sure no one was listening. We saved you. Save me from what? From her, Mom said, and there was genuine fear in her voice. From Eleanor Sinclair. She's not the person people think she is, Veronica. She's dangerous. She's my mother, I said, testing the words. They felt strange, but somehow right. My real mother. We're your real parents, Dad said firmly. We're the ones who raised you, who loved you, who lied to me for 25 years, I interrupted. Who let me think I was the weird one, the one who didn't fit, when the whole time you knew exactly why I felt out of place. We were protecting you, Mom said, tears streaming down her face. You have to understand, we were protecting you. From what? From having a mother who actually wanted me? From having enough money to pursue my dreams without working 3 jobs? From having a family who valued intelligence over conformity? From being murdered, Dad said bluntly. The words stopped me cold. What? Eleanor Sinclair doesn't just lose things, Veronica. She eliminates obstacles. And if she thought someone was threatening her daughter, she would have them killed without a second thought. I stared at him. You're saying she's a criminal? I'm saying she's a businesswoman who doesn't let anything stand in her way, Dad said, including family. Then why did you take me? If she's so dangerous, why risk making an enemy of her? Mom and Dad exchanged a look that I couldn't read. Because, Mom said slowly, we knew her. We worked for her. And we saw what she was planning to do to you. The pieces were starting to come together in a way that made my head spin. You worked for her? Doing what? Your father was her accountant, Mom said. I was Victoria's, your nanny. We loved you like our own daughter from the moment you were born. And when we found out what Eleanor was planning, what was she planning? She was going to use you, Dad said, as a weapon, against her business rivals, her enemies, anyone who stood in her way. She was going to raise you to be completely dependent on her, completely loyal to her, and then she was going to use your trust fund, your inheritance, your very existence as leverage. And beyond that, Mom added, she was already talking about arranged marriages, about using you to forge business alliances when you got older. She didn't see you as a daughter. She saw you as an asset. I felt sick. So you kidnapped me to save me from being used by my own mother? We took you to give you a chance at a normal life, Dad said. A life where you could make your own choices, be your own person, fall in love with whoever you wanted. But you didn't give me a normal life, I said. You gave me a life where I felt like I didn't belong anywhere, where I was constantly made to feel like something was wrong with me. That wasn't intentional, Mom said. We tried to make you feel loved, feel included. You tried to make me feel like Madison, I corrected. You tried to force me into a mold that I was never going to fit into, instead of helping me understand why I was different. Because if you knew why you were different, you might have gone looking for her, Dad said. And if you found her, or if she found you, then everything we sacrificed would have been for nothing. I was quiet for a moment, trying to process everything. What did you sacrifice? Everything, Mom said simply. Our careers, our friends, our entire lives. We changed our names, moved across the country, started over with nothing, all to keep you safe. And Madison? We had Madison because we wanted to give you a sibling, a sense of family, Mom said. We never intended for there to be favoritism. But there was, I said. There was always favoritism. Madison was the real daughter, the one who fit, and I was the project you were trying to fix. That's not fair, Dad said. Isn't it? I asked. You spent my entire childhood trying to make me more like Madison, instead of helping me understand who I really was. You made me feel like being intelligent was a character flaw, like asking questions was annoying, like wanting more than suburban conformity was somehow wrong. We were trying to keep you safe, Mom repeated. You were trying to keep yourselves safe, I realized. You were afraid that if I became too successful, too visible, too much like who I really was, she'd find me. So you spent 25 years trying to make me smaller, quieter, less remarkable. The truth of it hit me like a physical blow. All those years of feeling like I didn't belong, like something was wrong with me, like I was somehow defective compared to Madison. It had all been by design. Not conscious design, maybe, but design nonetheless. Veronica, Dad said, what are you going to do? Before I could answer, Marcus appeared at my elbow. She's on her way, he said quietly. Who's on her way? Eleanor Sinclair. She's flying in from Boston. She'll be here in 2 hours. Mom made that gasping sound again. She can't come here. She can and she is, Marcus said. And she's bringing a DNA testing kit and a team of lawyers. Then we need to leave, Dad said. Now, before she gets here. Leave? I stared at him. You want me to run away again? I want you to be safe, he said. If she gets her hands on you, if she proves you're Victoria, then I'll finally know who I really am, I said. For the first time in my life, I'll know who I'm supposed to be. You're supposed to be our daughter, Mom said desperately. You're supposed to be Veronica Hartwell, who loves art and reads too much and makes terrible coffee and has a laugh that could light up a room. You're not supposed to be some billionaire's weapon. Maybe I'm not, I said. Maybe I'm supposed to be Victoria Sinclair, who loves art and reads too much and makes terrible coffee and has a laugh that could light up a room, but who also has the resources to actually make a difference in the world. She'll destroy you, Dad said. Just like she destroys everyone who gets close to her. Or, I said, maybe I'll destroy her. Maybe I'll be the one thing she can't control or manipulate or use. You don't understand how powerful she is, Mom said. You don't understand what she's capable of. Then it's time I learned, I said. I'm done running from who I am. I'm done pretending to be smaller than I am. I'm done being the weird one. Marcus was looking at me with something that might have been admiration. What do you want me to tell her when she arrives? Tell her, I said, that her daughter is ready to come home. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of controlled chaos. Madison eventually emerged from the bridal suite, her perfect makeup streaked with tears, and her Vera Wang dress wrinkled beyond repair. She took one look at me and Marcus standing together near the exit and shook her head. I can't believe this is happening, she said to no one in particular. I can't believe my entire wedding has been destroyed by some insane story about my sister being secretly rich. Madison, I started, but she held up a hand. No. I can't deal with this right now. I can't deal with you right now. She walked past us toward the parking lot, and I watched her go with a mixture of guilt and relief. Guilt because her wedding day had been ruined. Relief because I didn't have to pretend anymore. I didn't have to be the weird sister who didn't fit in. The guests had mostly dispersed by now, either heading to their cars or gathering in small groups to gossip about the drama they just witnessed. The reception hall felt cavernous and empty, with only the catering staff cleaning up the debris from what should have been a perfect day. You don't have to wait with me, I told Marcus. This isn't your problem anymore. Actually, he said, it's exactly my problem. I'm the one who opened this particular can of worms. I'm the one who recognized you. I'm the one who's been working on this case for 3 years. And I'm the one who just destroyed your marriage, I pointed out. My marriage was built on a lie, he said quietly. I told myself I loved Madison, and maybe I did, but I was never honest with her about why I was really interested in her family. I was never honest with myself about it either. Do you think you can fix it? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Maybe. If she can forgive me for using her, even unconsciously. If she can accept that her sister is about to become one of the most powerful people in the country, you really think that's what's going to happen? I've been studying this case for 3 years, Marcus said. I've seen Eleanor Sinclair's medical records, her financial records, her private correspondence. She's been looking for you every single day since you disappeared. She's never given up, never stopped hoping. And now that she knows you're alive, what? She's going to want to give you everything. The inheritance, the company, the power, all of it. You're going to go from being an art gallery employee to being worth more than some small countries. The thought was so overwhelming that I had to sit down. I don't know if I want that. What do you want? I thought about it. I want to know who I really am. I want to understand why I've always felt like I didn't belong anywhere. I want to know if Eleanor Sinclair is really the monster my parents think she is, or if there's more to the story. And if she is a monster, then I guess I'll have to decide what kind of person I want to be with that much power, I said. Whether I want to be like her, or whether I want to be something different. A commotion at the entrance interrupted our conversation. Through the glass doors, I could see a convoy of black cars pulling up to the circular driveway. Expensive cars. The kind that scream money and power and don't mess with me. She's here, Marcus said quietly. My parents, who had been huddled in a corner of the reception hall having what looked like an intense conversation, rushed over to us. Veronica, Dad said urgently, it's not too late. We can still leave. We can disappear again. She doesn't have to know. She already knows, I said. And I'm not running anymore. You don't understand, Mom said desperately. She's not just wealthy. She's ruthless. She's destroyed people for less than what we did to her. Then maybe it's time to pay the price, I said. Maybe it's time to stop running. Through the glass doors, I could see people getting out of the cars. Men in expensive suits, women in power attire, all of them moving with the kind of purposeful efficiency that comes from working for someone who doesn't tolerate mistakes. And then I saw her. Eleanor Sinclair stepped out of the lead car, and even from a distance I could see why she was legendary. She was tall, probably 5'8", with silver hair pulled back in a perfect chignon, and a posture that suggested she'd never doubted herself for a single moment in her life. She was wearing a black suit that probably cost more than my annual salary, and she moved like she owned not just the ground she was walking on, but the air around it. But it was her eyes that stopped me cold. Even from 50 feet away, I could see them, green with gold flecks, exactly like mine. Oh my God, I whispered. She looks like me, or I look like her. The resemblance is unmistakable, Marcus said. There's no way the DNA test is going to be negative. Eleanor Sinclair walked through the doors of the reception hall like she was entering a boardroom where she was about to fire everyone present. Her entourage fanned out behind her, but she paid them no attention. Her eyes were scanning the room, and when they landed on me, she stopped walking. For a moment, neither of us moved. We just stared at each other across the empty dance floor. Two women who shared the same face, the same eyes, the same bone structure, but who had lived completely different lives. Then she started walking toward me, and I could see that her hands were shaking slightly. Just slightly, but enough that I knew this was costing her something. This woman who was legendary for her composure, her control, her ability to negotiate billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, was nervous. "Victoria," she said, when she was about 10 feet away, and her voice was softer than I'd expected. "My God, you look exactly like I did at your age." "I go by Veronica now," I said, and immediately felt stupid for correcting her. "Veronica," she repeated, testing the name. "They gave you a different name. They gave me a different life," I said. She glanced at my parents, who were standing behind me looking like they wanted to disappear into the floor. "Richard, Susan, it's been a long time." "Eleanor," Dad said stiffly. "We were hoping we'd never see you again." "I'm sure you were," she said, and there was ice in her voice. "But you took something that belonged to me. Did you really think I'd stop looking?" "We saved her from you," Mom said, finding her voice. "We saved her from what you were going to do to her." "What I was going to do to her," Eleanor repeated slowly, "was love her. What I was going to do to her was give her everything. What I was going to do to her was prepare her to inherit one of the largest fortunes in American history. By turning her into a weapon," Dad said. "By using her, by teaching her to be strong," Eleanor interrupted. "By teaching her that she didn't have to accept whatever life handed her. By teaching her that she had the power to change the world." She turned back to me. "And instead, they taught you to be small. They taught you to hide. They taught you to be ashamed of who you are." "How do you know what they taught me?" "Because I can see it in you," she said. "The way you hold yourself, the way you apologize for taking up space, the way you let that girl, your supposed sister, treat you like you're less than her. They taught you to be invisible. They taught me to be safe," I said. "Same thing," Eleanor said. "Being safe means being small. Being small means being powerless. Being powerless means watching other people control your life. And being powerful means what? Destroying anyone who gets in your way? Being powerful," she said, "means having choices. It means not having to depend on anyone else's approval or permission to live the life you want. It means being able to protect the people you care about and to punish the people who hurt them." "Like you're going to punish my parents?" Eleanor looked at Richard and Susan with an expression that could have frozen hell. "They stole 25 years of my daughter's life. They stole 25 years of my life. They made me believe my only child was dead. So yes, I'm going to punish them. They're the only family I've ever known," I said quietly. "They're kidnappers," Eleanor said bluntly, "and they're going to prison." "Eleanor, please," Mom said, stepping forward. "We know we did wrong, but we did it out of love. We love Veronica like our own daughter." "You love controlling her," Eleanor corrected. "You love keeping her small and manageable and grateful for whatever scraps of affection you throw her way." "That's not true," I said, but even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it. "Isn't it?" Eleanor asked. "Tell me, Veronica, when was the last time your parents celebrated one of your achievements without comparing it to your sister's? When was the last time they encouraged you to dream bigger instead of telling you to be more realistic? When was the last time they made you feel like you were enough, exactly as you are?" I opened my mouth to answer and realized I couldn't, because she was right. Every achievement had been measured against Madison's. Every dream had been met with gentle discouragement. Every time I'd shown ambition or confidence, I'd been told to dial it back. "The DNA test is just a formality," Eleanor continued. "I know you're my daughter. I knew it the moment I saw you, but I need legal proof for what comes next." "What comes next?" "You take your place," she said simply. "You inherit everything that should have been yours from the beginning. You learn who you really are, what you're really capable of. And if I don't want that," Eleanor smiled, and for the first time since she'd walked into the room, she looked genuinely warm. "Then you make that choice as Victoria Sinclair, heir to the Sinclair fortune, instead of making it as Veronica Hartwell, the weird sister who works at an art gallery. What's the difference?" "The difference," she said, "is that Victoria Sinclair has options, real options. If you want to spend your life working in art galleries, you can buy art galleries. If you want to travel the world, you can do it in your private jet. If you want to help people, you can start foundations that actually make a difference. And if I want revenge, something flickered in Eleanor's eyes, then you'll have the resources to get it. I glanced back at Madison, who was still standing by the entrance looking lost and angry. At Marcus, who was watching this entire exchange with fascination. At my parents, who looked terrified. What kind of revenge are we talking about? The kind that fits the crime, Eleanor said. Richard and Susan will face legal consequences for kidnapping. But Madison spent your entire life making you feel like you weren't good enough, making you feel like you were the problem. She didn't know, I said, though I wasn't sure why I was defending her. She didn't know you were stolen, Eleanor agreed. But she knew she was being cruel. She knew she was making you feel small. She chose to do that, every single day for 25 years. So what do you suggest? Eleanor's smile was sharp as a blade. I suggest we show her what happens when you underestimate a Sinclair. The DNA test took 15 minutes to process. Eleanor had brought some kind of portable lab equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. While we waited for the results, she told me stories about my early childhood, that my parents, Richard and Susan, I was still getting used to thinking of them that way, had never shared. You were walking by 10 months, she said, settling into one of the reception hall chairs like she owned the place, which, knowing what I now knew about her wealth, she probably could have. Not just walking, but running. The nannies could barely keep up with you. Nannies? Plural? You went through 7 nannies in your first 2 years, Eleanor said with obvious pride. You were too curious, too energetic, too smart for most of them. Susan was the only one who could handle you. I glanced at Mom, Susan, who was sitting as far away from Eleanor as possible, while still remaining in the same room. Is that true? You were spirited, Susan admitted quietly. You never accepted, because I said so, as an answer. You wanted to understand everything, question everything. And instead of encouraging that, Eleanor said coldly, you spent the next 25 years trying to break her of it. We were trying to help her fit in, Richard said defensively. We were trying to give her a normal life. You were trying to give her your life, Eleanor corrected. Small, safe, predictable. The kind of life where the biggest excitement is whether the neighbors got a new car. There's nothing wrong with wanting a normal life, I said. There's everything wrong with it when it's not your choice, Eleanor replied. When it's imposed on you by people who are afraid of what you might become if you were allowed to be yourself. The technician, a quiet woman in a lab coat who had set up her equipment with military precision, cleared her throat. Mrs. Sinclair, the results are ready. Eleanor stood up, and I could see her hands trembling again. For all her composure, for all her power and confidence, this moment mattered to her in a way that transcended business or money or revenge. Go ahead, she said. 99.7% probability of a mother-daughter relationship, the technician announced. The words hung in the air like a verdict. I felt something shift inside me, like a lock clicking open in a door I'd never known existed. So it's official, I said quietly. I'm Victoria Sinclair. You've always been Victoria Sinclair, Eleanor said. Now you just know it. Richard made a sound like a wounded animal. Veronica, please. Whatever you're thinking about doing, whatever she's promising you, remember that we love you. We've always loved you. You love the version of me that you created, I said, and I was surprised by how calm I sounded. The version that didn't ask too many questions, that didn't want too much, that was grateful for whatever attention you gave her. That's not true, Susan said, tears streaming down her face. We love all of you. We've always loved all of you. Then why did you spend my entire childhood making me feel like I was too much, too intense, too curious, too ambitious? Because we were scared, Susan said. We were scared that if you became too confident, too successful, too visible, she'd find you. And now she has, I said. And it turns out all those years of making me feel small were for nothing. Not for nothing, Richard said desperately. You're alive. You're safe. You had a childhood, a family, people who cared about you. I had people who controlled me, I corrected. There's a difference. Eleanor had been watching this exchange with interest, but now she stepped forward. The past is the past, she said. What matters now is the future, your future. What do you want to do with it? I want to understand, I said. I want to understand who I really am, what I'm really capable of. I want to understand why you were supposedly planning to use me as a weapon. and why they thought kidnapping me was the only solution. The weapon thing is bullshit, Eleanor said bluntly. Richard and Susan worked for me, yes. Richard was my accountant. Susan was your nanny. But they were also embezzling from me, skimming money from my accounts, stealing from your trust fund. That's a lie, Richard said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Eleanor asked. Should we call my forensic accountants? Should we review the financial records from 28 years ago? Because I assure you, I still have them. Why would they steal from you? I asked. Because they were greedy, Eleanor said simply, and because they thought they were smarter than me. They thought they could take a little here, a little there, and I'd never notice. But you did notice. I always notice. And when I confronted them about it, when I told them they were fired and that I was pressing charges, they panicked. They took you and disappeared, thinking they could use you as leverage, thinking I wouldn't prosecute them if they had my daughter. And the arranged marriage stuff, the business alliance stuff, Eleanor laughed, but there was no humor in it. I was talking about your education. About making sure you understood business, understood power, understood how to protect yourself in a world full of sharks. They twisted that into some fantasy about arranged marriages. I looked at Richard and Susan, searching their faces for the truth. Is that what happened? Did you steal from her? We took what we thought we deserved, Richard said finally. We worked for her for years, watched her treat employees like disposable assets, watched her destroy people who got in her way. We thought we were owed compensation for what we saw. What you saw, Eleanor said, was me building an empire. What you saw was me refusing to let anyone take advantage of me or my daughter. And what you decided was that you knew better than I did how to raise my child. We gave her a better life than you ever could have, Susan said defiantly. We gave her love, stability, normalcy. You gave her mediocrity, Eleanor said. You gave her a life so small that she thought working in an art gallery was the best she could hope for. You gave her a sister who treated her like dirt, and parents who constantly implied she wasn't good enough. We never, Susan started. You let Madison call her the weird one, Eleanor interrupted. For years. You let Madison treat her like she was less than, like she was the problem, like she was lucky to be tolerated by her own family. We tried to help her fit in, Richard said. You tried to break her spirit, Eleanor said. And you almost succeeded. I was quiet for a long moment, processing everything I'd learned. What happens now? Now, Eleanor said, you come home. You learn who you really are. You take your place as my heir. And what about them? I gestured toward Richard and Susan. They face the consequences of their choices, Eleanor said. Kidnapping is a federal crime. So is embezzlement. They're going to prison. For how long? 15 to 20 years, probably. Maybe longer, given that they've been living under false identities for almost 3 decades. I looked at the people who had raised me, who had been my entire world for 28 years. They looked older suddenly, smaller, like the weight of their secrets had finally caught up with them. What if I asked you not to prosecute them? Eleanor's eyebrows shot up. Why would you do that? Because they're the only family I've ever known. Because despite everything, they did love me in their own way. Because destroying them won't change what happened. No, Eleanor said. But it will send a message. It will make it clear that no one steals from the Sinclair family and gets away with it. And what kind of message does mercy send? That you're weak, Eleanor said immediately. That you can be manipulated by emotional appeals. Or that I'm strong enough to choose forgiveness over revenge. Eleanor stared at me for a long moment. You really want to protect them? After everything they've done? I want to understand what kind of person I'm going to be, I said. Whether I'm going to be someone who destroys people who hurt me, or someone who rises above it. In my experience, Eleanor said, rising above it is just another way of saying letting people get away with hurting you. Maybe, I said. Or maybe it's another way of saying I'm better than they are. Eleanor was quiet for a moment, studying me. You know what? You might actually be ready for this after all. Ready for what? Ready to be Victoria Sinclair, she said. Ready to inherit everything I've built. Ready to decide what kind of legacy you want to leave. And Madison? I asked, glancing toward my sister, who had been standing by the entrance this entire time, listening to every word. What about her? Eleanor followed my gaze. What about her? She's innocent in all this. She didn't know I was kidnapped. She's just Madison. Madison, Eleanor said thoughtfully. Who spent your entire life making you feel like you were less than her? Madison, who called you the weird one at her own wedding. Madison, who never once stood up for you or made you feel valued or appreciated. She didn't know any better. She knew better, Eleanor said. She chose to be cruel because it made her feel superior. She chose to diminish you because it elevated her. So what are you suggesting? Eleanor's smile was sharp. I'm suggesting we show her what it feels like to be the weird one. I'm suggesting we show her what it feels like to be on the outside looking in. How? Leave that to me, Eleanor said. I have some ideas. 3 months later, I was standing in the penthouse office of Sinclair Industries, looking out at a view of Manhattan that stretched from the Hudson River to the East River. The office was on the 47th floor of a building that Eleanor owned, and from up here, the people on the street looked like ants. The transformation had been swift and dramatic. One day, I was Veronica Hartwell, art gallery employee from Brooklyn. The next day, I was Victoria Sinclair, heiress to a $14 billion empire. The media had gone absolutely insane when the story broke. Missing heiress found after 25 years. Kidnapped billionaire's daughter reclaims her fortune. The Cinderella story of the century. What they didn't know, what no one knew except Eleanor and me, was that I'd been planning something from the moment I'd learned the truth about my identity. Something that would settle the score with Madison once and for all. The paperwork is all finalized, Eleanor said, walking into the office with a stack of documents. She'd aged remarkably little in the 3 months since we'd been reunited, but then again, getting your daughter back and watching your enemies suffer probably had a rejuvenating effect. You now officially own 41% of Wellington Hartwell and Associates. I turned away from the window. Marcus's law firm. Marcus's father's law firm, Eleanor corrected. The same firm that's been representing our family for 15 years. The same firm where Marcus works. The same firm that Madison was counting on to provide her with a comfortable lifestyle. And now I own it. Now you control it, Eleanor said. There's a difference. Ownership is just paperwork. Control is power. Over the past 3 months, I'd learned a lot about power. I'd learned that having money wasn't just about buying things. It was about having options. I'd learned that people treated you differently when they knew you could buy and sell them. I'd learned that being Victoria Sinclair meant never having to accept being made to feel small ever again. I'd also learned that Eleanor hadn't been exaggerating when she'd called Richard and Susan kidnappers and embezzlers. The FBI investigation had uncovered a trail of financial crimes going back almost 30 years. They'd stolen nearly $2 million from my trust fund over the years, money they'd used to fund their comfortable Connecticut lifestyle. They were currently awaiting trial, and their lawyer had told them to expect significant prison time. Have you talked to Madison lately? Eleanor asked. She called last week, I said. She wanted to apologize for what she said at the wedding. She wanted to work things out between us. How generous of her. She also wanted to know if I could help with their financial situation. Apparently, Marcus's salary isn't quite enough to maintain their lifestyle, now that they've bought a house and are planning to start a family. Eleanor's smile was predatory. And what did you tell her? I told her I'd think about it. And have you? Thought about it. I walked over to my desk, a massive mahogany piece that had probably cost more than my old apartment's annual rent, and picked up a manila folder. I've done more than think about it. I've planned for it. Show me. I opened the folder and spread out the contents. Financial records, property deeds, employment contracts, bank statements. Madison and Marcus bought a house in Westchester County 6 weeks ago. 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, 3-car garage, pool, tennis court, $2.8 million. Nice house. House they couldn't actually afford, I continued. Their combined income is about $300,000 a year. The mortgage on that house is $12,000 a month, plus property taxes, plus maintenance, plus utilities. They're already behind on their payments. How do you know all this? Because I own the bank that holds their mortgage, I said simply. I bought it 2 weeks ago. Eleanor's eyebrows shot up. You bought a bank? I bought a small regional bank that specializes in high-end residential mortgages. Cost me about $40 million, which, according to my financial advisors, is pocket change for someone with my net worth. And now you control their mortgage, and their credit cards, and their car loans, and pretty much every aspect of their financial lives. Eleanor sat down in the chair across from my desk. I'm impressed. What's the plan? The plan, I said, is to give Madison exactly what she asked for. Help with their financial situation. I don't follow. Madison spent our entire childhood making me feel like I was the weird one, the one who didn't fit, the one who should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention I got. She made me feel small, insignificant, forgettable. And now? Now I'm going to make her feel what it's like to be powerless. I'm going to make her understand what it means to be dependent on someone else's goodwill. I'm going to make her beg. I pulled out another set of documents. These are eviction notices. Madison and Marcus are 3 months behind on their mortgage, 2 months behind on their car payments, and maxed out on their credit cards. The bank, my bank, is foreclosing on their house next week. They'll just refinance somewhere else. Not with their credit rating, I said, which took a mysterious nosedive last month when several of their accounts were suddenly reported as delinquent. Victoria, Eleanor said, and there was something like pride in her voice. You might be even more ruthless than I am. I learned from the best, I said, but I'm not done yet. I pulled out a final document. This is Marcus's employment contract with Wellington, Hartwell and Associates. It includes a morality clause that allows for immediate termination if he engages in conduct that reflects poorly on the firm. What kind of conduct? The kind where he marries someone under false pretenses, then abandons them when he finds out their sister is worth $14 billion. Eleanor frowned. But he didn't abandon Madison. No, I said, but he's about to. What do you mean? I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out a tablet. On the screen was a video file. This is security footage from the reception hall 3 months ago. The part where Marcus bows to me and calls me ma'am. The part where he explains that he's been working on my case for 3 years. The part where Madison accuses him of marrying her to get close to me. So I had my media team edit it, I said. Creative editing. The kind that makes it look like Marcus deliberately sought out Madison, courted her, and married her specifically to gain access to the Sinclair family fortune. The kind that makes it look like their entire relationship was a calculated business move. Eleanor stared at me. That's brilliant, devious, completely fabricated? All of the above, she said. What are you planning to do with it? I'm planning to send it to the partners at Wellington, Hartwell and Associates, I said, along with a memo expressing my concern about having an employee who would engage in such unethical behavior. As a major client of the firm, I'm sure they'll take my concerns very seriously. They'll fire him. Immediately, I agreed. And with a termination for cause on his record, he'll have trouble finding work at any other major firm. So Marcus loses his job, they lose their house, their credit is destroyed, and their marriage is under strain because of a video that makes Marcus look like a fortune hunter. Exactly. Eleanor was quiet for a moment. And Madison? What happens to her specifically? Madison, I said, gets to experience what it feels like to watch her perfect life fall apart through no fault of her own. She gets to feel powerless, dependent, scared about the future. She gets to be the one who doesn't fit in with her social circle anymore because she can't afford their lifestyle. And then, when she's lost everything, when she's desperate and has nowhere else to turn, she'll come to me. She'll apologize for all those years of making me feel small. She'll ask for my help. She'll beg me to save her. And will you? I was quiet for a moment, thinking about all the times Madison had made me feel like I was less than her, all the times she'd called me weird or strange or different like they were character flaws, all the times she'd made me feel like I should be grateful just to be tolerated by my own family. I'll think about it, I said finally. Eleanor smiled. You really are my daughter. There's more, I said. I've been working on something else, something bigger. Bigger than destroying your sister's life? Bigger than just Madison, I said. Something that sends a message to everyone who's ever underestimated me, ever made me feel small, ever treated me like I didn't matter. I'm listening. I walked back to the window, looking out at the city that was now, in many ways, mine. I'm starting a foundation, the Victoria Sinclair Foundation for Underestimated Women. A $1 billion endowment focused on supporting women who've been told they're too much, too intense, too ambitious. That's not revenge, Eleanor said. That's philanthropy. It's both, I said, because every woman I help, every success story that comes out of this foundation is going to be a reminder to people like Madison that they were wrong about me, that they underestimated the wrong person. And the foundation will be very public, I assume. Extremely public. I'm going to be on magazine covers, giving speeches, appearing on talk shows. I'm going to be everywhere, being celebrated for being exactly the kind of person Madison always made me feel ashamed of being. Eleanor joined me at the window. You know, when I first lost you, I fantasized about what kind of person you'd become, whether you'd be strong enough to handle the Sinclair legacy, whether you'd be smart enough to navigate the world we live in. And I never imagined you'd exceed my expectations this completely, she said. You're not just strong and smart. You're creative. You're strategic. You're the kind of person who turns revenge into a force for good. I had good teachers, I said. 28 years of being underestimated taught me a lot about power and how to use it. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled. What is it? Eleanor asked. Madison, I said, showing her the screen. She wants to meet for lunch tomorrow. She says it's urgent. The eviction notice must have arrived. Right on schedule, I said. The question is, do I say yes? Do you want to see her grovel? I thought about it. A year ago, even 3 months ago, the idea of Madison groveling would have been appealing. But now, with everything I'd gained, everything I'd learned about myself and my capabilities, the idea seemed almost beneath me. No, I said finally. I don't think I do. No, I think I want something better than revenge, I said. I think I want to be so successful, so powerful, so undeniably impressive that what Madison thinks of me becomes completely irrelevant. Eleanor smiled. Now that, she said, is real power. I agreed to meet Madison for lunch, but not because I wanted to watch her grovel. I agreed because I wanted closure. I wanted to look her in the eye one last time as equals. Or rather, as the unequal we'd always been, but with the power dynamic finally reflecting reality. We met at Le Bernardin, which was probably a poor choice on Madison's part, given that it was one of the most expensive restaurants in the city and she was currently broke. But then again, Madison had never been particularly good at reading rooms or understanding irony. She was already seated when I arrived, and I barely recognized her. The perfectly styled hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. The designer clothes had been replaced with what looked like a department store dress. She looked tired, stressed, and about 10 years older than she had at her wedding 3 months ago. Veronica, she said, standing up as I approached the table. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. It's Victoria now, I said, settling into my chair. And I'm curious to hear what was so urgent. She flinched at the correction. Right, Victoria. I'm still getting used to everything. The waiter appeared immediately. One of the perks of being worth $14 billion was that people paid attention to you. And I ordered a glass of wine. Madison asked for water. I can't afford wine here, she said quietly. I probably can't afford to be here at all, but I needed to talk to you somewhere. Neutral. How are things? I asked, though I knew exactly how things were. I'd been monitoring her financial situation daily. Not good, she admitted. We're losing the house. Marcus lost his job. Our credit is destroyed. We're probably going to have to move in with his parents until we can figure something out. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I was surprised to find that I actually meant it. Not sorry enough to help, but sorry in the way you feel bad when you see a stranger having a hard time. The thing is, Madison continued, I think someone is targeting us. The timing of everything, the way it all happened at once. It's too much of a coincidence. Who would target you? She looked at me directly for the first time since I'd sat down. I think it might be your mother, Eleanor. I think she's punishing us for what our parents did. I took a sip of my wine, considering my response. Why would she care about you? You didn't kidnap me. No, but I wasn't always kind to you. I know that. And maybe she thinks I don't deserve to be happy when you spent all those years feeling like you didn't belong. Do you think you deserve to be happy? The question caught her off guard. What do you mean? I mean, do you think you deserve to be happy? Do you think you've earned it? Do you think you've been the kind of person who should have good things happen to them? Madison was quiet for a long moment. I don't know how to answer that. Let me help you, I said. Do you remember my 10th birthday party? Your what? My 10th birthday. Mom and Dad threw me a party in the backyard. Invited kids from school, had cake, the whole thing. Do you remember what you did? Madison's face went pale. Victoria, that was 18 years ago. You told everyone at the party that I was adopted, I said calmly. You told them that Mom and Dad felt sorry for me because my real parents didn't want me. You made it into a game. Guess why Veronica's real parents gave her away? I was a kid. You were 13, I said. Old enough to know better. Old enough to understand that what you were doing was cruel. I'm sorry, Madison said quietly. I was young and stupid and jealous because you were getting attention. Do you remember what happened after that party? You locked yourself in your room for 2 days. I cried myself sick, I corrected. I spent 2 days convinced that everything you'd said was true, that I was some unwanted kid that Mom and Dad had taken in out of pity. Victoria, I'm so sorry. Do you remember high school graduation? Madison closed her eyes. Please don't. You gave a speech, I continued. valedictorian speech, and you thanked everyone who had supported you, everyone who had believed in you. Mom, Dad, your teachers, your friends. You talked about how family was everything to you. Victoria. And then, at the party afterward, when people asked about me, you said I was the family disappointment. You said some people were meant for great things, and some people were meant to be ordinary, and that was okay because the world needed ordinary people too. I didn't mean, yes, you did, I said. You meant every word, because making me feel small made you feel bigger. Making me feel ordinary made you feel special. Madison was crying now, quietly but steadily. I know I was terrible to you. I know I made you feel awful about yourself. I've regretted it every day since I found out who you really are. You've regretted it since you found out I'm rich, I corrected. When you thought I was just weird little Veronica who worked at an art gallery, you were perfectly fine with how you'd treated me. That's not true, isn't it? At your wedding, before you knew who I was, you called me the weird one who would always be the weird one. You said some things never change. You weren't sorry then. Madison wiped her eyes with her napkin. What do you want me to say? That I was a horrible sister? That I was cruel and jealous and insecure? Fine. I was all of those things. I'm sorry. I don't want you to say anything, I said. I want you to understand something. What? I want you to understand that the person you spent 28 years treating like she was less than you, like she was the weird one who didn't matter, is now one of the most powerful people in the country. I want you to understand that every time you made me feel small, you were diminishing someone who was always bigger than you could ever imagine. Madison stared at me. Are you the one who's been targeting us? Are you the one who destroyed our life? I finished my wine and signaled for the check. I think the more important question is, what are you going to do now? What do you mean? I mean, you're broke. Your husband is unemployed. Your credit is ruined. Your perfect life is over. So what are you going to do? I don't know. I guess I was hoping that maybe you could help you? Yes. I studied her face. The desperation, the fear, the complete reversal of everything she'd ever believed about our relationship. A few months ago, this moment would have felt like victory. Now it just felt sad. Madison, I said, for 28 years, you made me believe that I was the one who should be grateful. Grateful to be included. Grateful to be tolerated. Grateful to be part of a family that constantly made me feel like I didn't quite belong. Victoria, please, and now you want me to be grateful again. Grateful enough to save you from the consequences of your own choices. I'm begging you. I know you are, I said, and that should feel good. That should feel like justice. But you know what? It doesn't. I stood up, leaving money on the table to cover both our meals. It doesn't feel good because I've realized something. Your opinion of me was never the problem. The problem was that I believed it mattered. Where are you going? I'm going back to my life, I said. My real life. The one where I don't have to make myself smaller to make other people comfortable. The one where being weird and intense and ambitious are assets, not character flaws. And what about me? I looked at her one last time. What about you? What am I supposed to do? Figure it out, I said. You're smart, you're educated, you're capable. Figure out how to build a life based on who you actually are instead of who you think you're supposed to be. But I don't know how. Then learn, I said. The same way I learned. The same way everyone learns. By trying and failing and trying again. I walked toward the exit, then paused and turned back. Madison, for what it's worth, I hope you do figure it out. I hope you find a way to be happy that doesn't require making other people feel small. Victoria, wait! But I was already gone. Out of the restaurant, into my car, back to my real life. The life where I was exactly as weird and intense and ambitious as I wanted to be, and where that was not just okay, but celebrated. 3 blocks away, my phone rang. Eleanor, how did it go? She asked. It went exactly as it needed to, I said. She begged. I said no. And I realized that I've outgrown the need for revenge. And how does that feel? Liberating, I said. Turns out the best revenge isn't getting even. It's becoming so successful that the opinions of people who underestimated you become completely irrelevant. Spoken like a true Sinclair, Eleanor said, and I could hear the pride in her voice. So what's next? Next, we change the world, she said. Starting with making sure no other little girl ever has to spend 28 years believing she's the weird one when she's actually extraordinary. I like the sound of that, I said. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly who I was supposed to be. 1 year later, I was standing on the stage at the Jacob Javits Center, looking out at an audience of 5,000 women who had gathered for the inaugural Victoria Sinclair Foundation conference. The theme was unapologetically extraordinary, and every single woman in that audience had a story about being told she was too much, too intense, too ambitious. "A year ago," I said into the microphone, my voice carrying clearly through the massive space, "I was Veronica Hartwell, the weird sister who worked at an art gallery and drove a 15-year-old Honda Civic. I was the family disappointment, the one who asked too many questions and wanted too much from life." The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. "Today, I'm Victoria Sinclair, CEO of Sinclair Industries, founder of this foundation, and proof that the people who call you too much are usually just intimidated by your potential." The applause was thunderous, but I held up a hand to quiet it. "But this isn't a story about revenge, even though it started that way. This isn't a story about getting back at the people who underestimated me. This is a story about what happens when you stop trying to make yourself smaller and start embracing exactly who you're meant to be." I clicked a remote, and the massive screen behind me lit up with images. Photos of the foundation's scholarship recipients, the women's business incubator we'd launched, the mentorship programs that were already changing lives. In the past year, the Victoria Sinclair Foundation has awarded full scholarships to 500 women who were told they were too ambitious for their own good. We've provided startup funding to 200 women entrepreneurs who were told their ideas were too big, too risky, too unrealistic. We've created mentorship programs that have connected 1,000 women with successful leaders who understand what it's like to be called difficult when you're actually just competent. More applause, longer this time. "But the most important thing we've done," I continued, "is prove that being underestimated isn't a limitation. It's a superpower, because when people expect nothing from you, when they write you off as the weird one, or the difficult one, or the one who doesn't fit in, you have the element of surprise. You have the freedom to exceed every single one of their expectations." I paused, thinking about Madison. We hadn't spoken since that lunch at Le Bernardin, but I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that she and Marcus had divorced, that she'd moved to California and was working as a teacher. Apparently she was happy, genuinely happy, in a way she'd never been when her life was perfect on paper. "Some of you might be wondering about the people who underestimated me," I said. "The family members who made me feel small, the sister who called me weird, the parents who tried to break my spirit to keep me safe. You might be wondering if I got my revenge." I smiled, thinking about everything that had happened, everything I'd learned. The truth is, the best revenge isn't destruction. The best revenge isn't even justice. The best revenge is becoming so authentically, unapologetically yourself that the opinions of people who never understood you become completely irrelevant. The audience erupted in applause, and I could see women wiping tears from their eyes, nodding in recognition. "Today, I want every single one of you to make me a promise," I said. "Promise me that you'll stop apologizing for being too much. Promise me that you'll stop making yourself smaller to make other people comfortable. Promise me that you'll embrace being the weird one, because weird usually just means different, and different usually means extraordinary." "We promise," came the response from 5,000 voices, and the sound was like thunder. "And promise me one more thing," I said. "Promise me that when you succeed, not if, but when, you'll remember to lift up the next weird girl who's being told she doesn't fit in, because that's how we change the world, one underestimated woman at a time." The standing ovation lasted for 5 minutes. As I walked off the stage, I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who believed that being different was a character flaw, the one who spent 28 years trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for her. That girl was gone. In her place was Victoria Sinclair, who had learned that the very things that made her feel like an outsider were actually the things that made her extraordinary. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it, expecting to see a message from Eleanor or one of my assistants. Instead, it was from Madison. "Saw your speech online. You were right. I needed to figure out who I really was, instead of who I thought I was supposed to be. I'm teaching 2nd grade now, and I've never been happier. I'm proud of you, Victoria. I'm proud to be your sister." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back a simple response. "I'm proud of you too." And I meant it. Because true power isn't about destroying the people who hurt you. True power is about becoming so secure in who you are that you can afford to be generous with forgiveness. I put my phone away and walked toward the exit, where Eleanor was waiting for me with a smile that could have powered a small city. How does it feel? She asked. Like coming home, I said. Like finally becoming who I was always meant to be. And what's next? I thought about it. The foundation was thriving. Sinclair Industries was more successful than ever. I had everything I'd ever dreamed of, and more. Next, I said, we keep building. We keep proving that being underestimated is just the universe's way of setting up an epic comeback story. Eleanor laughed. Spoken like a true Sinclair. Actually, I said, spoken like a true Victoria. Turns out I didn't need to become like you to be powerful. I just needed to become more like myself. And as we walked out into the New York sunshine, I knew that I had finally, truly, come home. Not to a place, but to myself. To the weird, intense, ambitious woman I had always been underneath all those years of trying to be someone else. The girl who used to be called the weird one had become the woman who was changing the world, one underestimated dreamer at a time. And that, I thought, was the most beautiful revenge of all. Wow, what an incredible journey this has been. If you love this story of transformation and empowerment, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments what your favorite part was. Are you watching from the US, Canada, or somewhere else in the world? I love hearing from you all. And don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories like this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Remember, you're never too much. You're just surrounded by people who can't handle your greatness.